that at all. And so some people who are perhaps quite invested in you know, moon meditations, moon ceremonies and this kind of thing, may perhaps take offense, maybe yes, maybe no, but I'm just asking you to keep an open mind, and I will provide the references so that you can do your own research and decide for yourselves. Okay, so the references, Truth Tribe, for what I'm about to tell you are Sasha Alex Lessin, and he has written a book called Anunnaki Gods No More. Anunnaki Gods No More. So that's Sasha Alex Lessin, who has a PhD. We've also got David Icke, which is one of my favourites. He's really an amazing truther, I would say. An English guy. Do you guys, any of you know David Icke? Yeah, David Icke, I-C-K-E. I think he's also on Facebook and perhaps Twitter. I'm not sure about Twitter, but I am connected with him on Facebook. You love him, Kerry? Yeah, me too. Okay, we've also got Michael Tallinger, which is from South Africa, which is also very amazing. I'm also connected with him on Facebook. You can perhaps friend or follow him there. I think he's recently been connected on Twitter also. And we've also got the late Zecharia Sitchin, which is one of the all-time greats that provided a lot of valuable information to do with the Anunnaki and to do with the Sumerian petroglyphs, yeah. And of course all of this information is etched into thousands and thousands and thousands of year-old stone in ancient Sumeria. Okay, so it's not just somebody's perspective or somebody's idea. There is actually a lot of evidence of some of the things that I'm going to say here that are literally etched into history of the stone, ancient stones that can be found on this planet. Okay, so there are our references. I've just given those to you. Now I've talked about the literal references. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about my own intuitive receptions and perceptions about that. Michael's last name is Tellinger, 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 Michael Tellinger. And he's amazing, and he's actually doing amazing work right now as well. Okay, there's one more guy that I'm thinking of, a David, and for some reason his surname has just popped out of my head, but when it comes to me I will give you his surname also. Okay, and so there are our references. Fantastic, good for you. And so now I'm going to go into my own intuitive hunches and receptions that that I received before I knew about these guys. I don't know him, Mark Kimmel. Where can I find him? Where can we find him? If you can share it with the rest of everybody here, and follow Kerry, guys. She's an amazing light here on Periscope too. ET references. Can he be found anywhere on social media? If you're aware of that, you're welcome. No worries. Okay, so going on to my own sort of personal experiences and receptions about what we're going to discuss, which is the moon. Okay, now first of all, today, as you may well or may well not know, I don't know which way round it might be for you, but today there is actually a partial solar eclipse, which is the image that I shared with you that was actually taken today from Africa. It was visible from Africa, that particular image today. And we're not going to actually talk about the event of the partial solar eclipse, but we are going to talk about the moon, because quite a few people have been asking me, you know, what is my perception about it? What do I think about it? and I've shared a little bit but not much. He has a page called cosmicparadigm.com. Thanks very much for sharing. I will look that up and see what he has to say about all of this too. So thanks very much for sharing that one with us, Kerry. Fantastic. So yes, my own personal intuitive hunches and receptions about the moon are, before I knew about any of these references, I always, even though we are quite naturally drawn to the moon because it does have magnetic energy and it is very beautiful, there's no doubt about that, and we know, some of us know a lot about the cycles of the moon and all the different phases of the moon, and in a lot of new age spiritual and even religious circles, as I mentioned earlier on, there is a lot of worship to do with the moon. There are ceremonies, there are invocations, and I will use the word unfortunately, almost from a very, very early stage of time, there has been a lot of sacrifice that has been done in the name of the moon also. Okay, so a lot of sacrifice, a lot of bloodshed, and a lot of killing actually, and literal sacrifice in the name of the moon. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share with you about it. And so from a very young age, not knowing why, not knowing how, there was always something that felt or smelt off to me about the moon, even though it was always very beautiful and you know, draw. What do you mean in current time? Yes, in current times. You're speaking of the sacrifice, yes. A lot of that has happened, and also in dark occultism, there's a lot of use of that too. Okay, so there is sacrifice, bloodshed that goes on in the name of the moon in dark occultism. So yes, so what I was personally getting from it is that I just felt something was off about it. Too much association with the Wicca. Yeah, and the Wicca's not all bad, but there is some stuff that goes on in relation to it. Perhaps I feel a lot of people aren't actually aware of some of the dark aspects of it. And so what I say is that we need to bring some of these truths to light so that we do know exactly what it is we're dealing with and what it is that we're engaging with. Yeah, I don't resonate with pagan or Wicca, nor do I personally, but I do know a lot of people that do. So each to their own, I guess, you know. And it always felt, I was always uncomfortable about it, and I always felt from a very early time like a lot of emotional upheaval that seemed to be connected to the moon. A lot of emotional interference that seemed to be connected to the moon, because the moon is also very strongly connected to the water element, and the water element also governs our emotions. Okay, and so this is why also water and the tides are affected in relation to the cycles of the moon. Wiccas and pagans, just not my journey. Yeah, not mine either personally. I'm not against it, but I don't have a resonance to it. Yeah. And so the first thing that I'm sharing with you guys is the fact that the moon and water, or water rather, has been very much been governed by the moon ever since the moon came into our solar system, because that's the first truth I'm going to share about you. The first deep truth disclosure is that the moon doesn't actually belong here naturally. Okay, it was brought into our solar system. The other thing about the moon is that it's actually hollow. Okay, and this is a scientific fact, because they found that it rings like a bell, right? When they have hurled or thrown things at it, it rings like a bell, and that ringing at, yes, a ball of heavy metal that is empty inside, and it rings at a very high pitch and for an extended duration of time, which actually appears to be quite unnatural. Yes, it's being said by a lot of these scholars and writers that it's not a real planet, okay? And it's to keep the Earth in a particular orbit. Yeah, it does. It keeps it in a particular orbit, but it was actually brought into our solar system by ETs. The moon is older than the Earth, right? Yes, the moon is older than the Earth because it's coming from another time and place. Feel sick, be pulled down by new and full moons. Yes, a lot of us are greatly affected by it, and I had to do extended healings on myself back in the day because I had a lot of associations to the moon from other lifetimes and other times and places that I've had. So I had to disassociate myself from it, had to disengage from it. I thought it was offset by craziness done by ETs. Yes, so it was actually a big association to ETs, and they use it to travel. They use it to travel, or rather they've used it to travel into our solar system. And so my innate feeling was always a feeling of feeling off with it, with new moons, full moons. I was being greatly affected, a lot of emotional upheaval, and I'm sure that applies to a lot of you out there. Like you can resonate with that or associate to that, yeah. So the guys, if I can call them that, or the ETs that were in charge of bringing the moon into our solar system were brothers called Enki and Enlil, which are associated to the Anunnaki. You very much associate to that? Okay, understandable. Now, it's not just Enki and Enlil. From the Aboriginal traditions and the ancient African traditions, these two brothers are referred to Wawane and Mpanku. Wawane and Mpanku, and they share exactly the same story. I'm getting goosebumps, guys, as I'm saying this, as the ancient Anunnaki story also. It's the same story, but just described in a different format, and both stories are etched into the history of this earth. It can literally be found. So, my friends, I really do encourage you and invite you to do your research. Don't take my word for it. Do your research and find out for yourselves, okay? There's a really good video. Yes, Cain and Abel in the Bible, exactly. It's the same sort of story. Please scope more about ETs in the future. I will be doing more scopes about ETs, but I think a good introduction about ETs is to talk about the moon, okay? Because everybody can relate to the moon, whether it be in a negative way, a positive way, or both ways. You know, we all know the moon. And so it's a great way to start exploring and introducing ET phenomena and how it is connected to us via the moon. And so we do have the story of Enki and Enlil, or Wawane and Mpanku, Cain and Abel, which is a reference that is in our own Bible, yeah. And so we've got all these amazing different references that are actually describing the same thing. The same thing. Yes, Richard, exactly, right? Now, the demiurge of the earth, when the earth was covered in water, what do you recommend to protect yourself from the moon forces? We'll get into that as soon as I have gone through the major bullet points, my darling. So put that comment and question on a shelf for me, and I will get back to you towards the end of our very important deep disclosures. So when the earth was covered by water, when we went into those floods of 40 days and 40 nights, again, that are described in the Bible, that are in the petroglyphs, okay, in the ancient Sumerian texts that Zechariah Sitchin talks about. This is actually when the moon came into our solar system. Would love to know what ETs are doing during this heightened times of the Mother Earth's ascension. Yes, and I will be tuning into that and sharing it with you, because there is a lot going on. there is a bit of interference happening, but I've kind of got used to the interference and I make light of it and humour it, whereas back in the day I was sort of like, oh my god, drama,